Welcome to the Shareholders Agreement video tutorial about anti-dilution clauses. When a shareholder has a so-called anti-dilution right, this means that, in some circumstances, they get extra shares. In particular, they are protected against the declining prices of the shares in a down round, or against a declining percentage of the shares when new shares are issued. So let's look at the following example. A startup has 1 million shares outstanding for a price of €5 per share, so the startup is worth 5 million euros. An investor has 200,000 shares with an anti-dilution, so 20% of the company. Those shares are worth 1 million euros. The next funding round happens, and 1 million more shares are printed. The total outstanding shares will be 2 million. The next funding round is concluded at a share price of 2.5 euros. This now means that the investor's shares have dropped in value to 500,000 euros, since the price per share has gone down to 2.5 euros. It also means that the investor's percentage in the company has dropped, since he now owns only 10% of the shares, not the original 20% anymore. If the investor has an anti-dilution clause that protects his percentage in the company, then that clause may now imply that the investor gets extra shares to make sure that his percentage in the company is brought back to 20%, or at least closer to that value. Similarly, if the investor has an anti-dilution clause that protects his total share value in a down round, then that clause may now imply that the investor gets extra shares to make sure that the total value of his shares in the company is brought back to 1 million euros, or at least closer to that value. In both cases, the anti-dilution for investors will usually mean that you, as a co-founder, are losing your percentage in your company faster. The additional shares for the investor have to come from somewhere. Often the founders have to provide many, or even all, of the shares for the investor's anti-dilution protection. If there are several funding rounds in which the investors get the benefit from an anti-dilution clause, then the founders will likely have to hand over more and more shares, so before you know it, you will lose a lot. Founders should study any anti-dilution clause carefully before signing it. These clauses are standard, and they are common, so most likely the founders will have to accept one. But it's important that you understand the implications fully, and often you can negotiate for a milder version of any particular anti-dilution clause with more limitations. The effects of an anti-dilution clause can be reduced by various limitations. For example, an anti-dilution clause that maintains an investor's percentage often only works with funding rounds below a certain company valuation. As soon as your valuation passes that point, the anti-dilution will no longer work. Meanwhile, an anti-dilution clause that protects the investor's euro investment value through a down round can often be softened into a provision that only provides a partial compensation for a loss of value, so not a complete compensation. That's called a full ratchet. We have training sessions that can help you think about your shareholders agreement. Please let us know if you want to join by sending us an email. We hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Don't forget to watch other tutorials about the shareholders agreement.